This video is brought to you by Nebula, the streaming service made by and for creators. If you like what I do and want to help support my channel, Nebula is the single best way to do so. It'll get you a bunch of rad stuff like ad-free videos, early releases, and of course, it's the only place where you can watch my original series, Polyphonic magazine. Check it out with the link in the description. In 1977, music was about to change forever, and one of the first people to realize it was Brian Eno. At the time, Eno had linked up with David Bowie. Together they were recording in Berlin's famous Hansa Studios, just 500 feet away from the Berlin Wall. The two hoped that they could create the sound of the future, but their plans got waylaid. One day during these sessions, Eno brought a record into David Bowie, equal parts excited and disappointed, because somebody else had already accomplished their goal. Eno prophesied, "I have heard the sound of the future. This single is gonna change the sound of club music for the next 15 years. That single was Donna Summer's I Feel Love, and Eno's prediction was more right than he could have possibly imagined. The influence of I Feel Love has stretched far beyond 15 years. It changed the face of disco, directly inspired an entire generation of artists, and almost single-handedly birthed the entire body of electronic dance music as we know it today. Nearly half a century after its release, the impacts of I Feel Love can still be tangibly felt on pop music, and it remains one of the single most important moments in the history of recorded song. Let's take a closer look. By the time Donna Summer released I Feel Love, she had already established herself as one of the queens of disco. 2 years earlier, she'd rocketed to international fame thanks to the catchy, erotic Love to Love You Baby, which was spinning on dance floors around the globe, even as radio stations were banning it for explicit content. Following the success of Love to Love You, the songwriting and production team of Giorgio Moroder and Pete Bellotti began to work on more conceptual projects with Summer. 1976 saw them release a Love Trilogy, which featured a sprawling 3-part disco epic in Try Me, I Know We Can Make It. They followed that up with 4 Seasons of Love, a concept album that explored love in the context of the changing seasons. When it came time for Summer's 5th album, Moroder and Bellotti had another experimental idea. I Remember Yesterday was created as a conceptual walk through modern music history. That album opens on the swinging horns of a 40s band. From there it moves to Love's Unkind, an homage to 60s girl groups, and Back in Love Again, a Motown pastiche. The 70s were represented with the funk and disco that had become Summer's signature, but the album didn't end there. For the final song on the album, Moroder and Bellotti wanted a glimpse into the future, which meant creating a whole new sort of sound. Naturally, Moroder turned to the instrument of the future, the synthesizer. People had been experimenting with electronic instruments for some time. Theremins had been used to score sci-fi, and psychedelic bands like The Doors had dabbled in early Moog synthesizers. By the early 70s, more experimental groups like Kraftwerk were really starting to push things, using synthesizers as part of larger sonic works like Autobahn. But Moroder and Bellotti didn't just want to experiment on the fringes. They wanted the synthesizer front and center for an entire pop track that could climb charts and spin on dance floors. So they borrowed a Moog Modular 3P, a mammoth of a machine with 4 cabinets, dozens of patch bays, and a shocking mess of patch cords. Like the beast that it was, the Moog was notoriously temperamental, so Moroder enlisted the help of engineer Robbie Weedle. Moroder explained to Mixmag in 2017, "I needed him because even if I'd owned one, I wouldn't have been able to get any sound out of it." With the help of Weedle, Moroder and Bellotti started to put some sounds together. They cut up white noise created by the Moog and used it to create their hi-hat. Weedle sequenced a bass line of 4 notes, but added a slight delay to each, creating the cascading sound that drives the song. But even with Weedle's help, Orchestrating the Moog turned out to be an enormous challenge, as Moroder recalled to Mixmag. The Moog would go out of tune every few minutes. I think we'd do 20 or 30 seconds and then stop. Then we'd go back, tune it, and drop it in. It was quite a job. But for all its drawbacks, the Moog offered something no other instrument could: perfect synchronization. These days, any digital workstation can quantize beats with the click of a button, creating music that falls perfectly on the beat. But at the time, this concept was an absolute novelty. It was so novel, in fact, that even the inventor of the Moog didn't realize it could be done. Wheatle taught producers how to use the Moog to lock multiple tracks together, getting them perfectly in sync with each other. And the result is a perfection that had only ever been aspired to by even the most disciplined and talented session musicians. It's a sort of cold precision that calls to mind futuristic sci-fi cityscapes. The perfect mechanical sequencing of I Feel Love caught the musical world by surprise. Disco visionary Nile Rodgers was stricken by the song when he first heard it, but he had no idea that it was made on a Moog. He thought the iconic riff was played on a guitar, so he spent many fruitless hours trying to emulate the track on his own before finally learning the truth. But for all the machine precision that the Moog provided, it couldn't do everything. No matter how hard they tried, the producers could not get the Moog to create a drum sound they were happy with. So they brought in session drummer Keith Forsey, who provided an immaculate four-to-the-floor beat. With Forsey's beat driving the song, the last thing to do was loop in Donna Summer for the vocals. In the past, Summer had typically not had a hand in the songwriting process, but this time she wanted the lyrics to feel real and true to her experience. At the time, Donna Summer was seeing a new man in her life, Bruce Sudano. She was head over heels for him and wanted to put some of that into her music. Summer took that fresh, new love energy into the studio and delivered I Feel Love in a single transcendent take. Her voice gives the song a warm, human touch, a contrast to the cool inhumanity of the Moog sequence. In a career full of excellent vocal performances, I Feel Love might just be Donna Summer's finest. She washes angelic and passionate over the mix, melting into your ears as she draws out each word for all it's worth. The final result is something surreal, and something that was completely unheard of at the time. It was the collision of pure human emotion and robotic precision, creating a utopian vision of the future of music, and bringing listeners everywhere to their feet. Nobody knew how big I Feel Love was gonna be. Its first single release was actually as a B-side to Can't We Just Sit Down and Talk It Over, but the response to I Feel Love was so intense and immediate that the label switched it to the A-side. From there, it became a dance floor sensation, tearing across the disco scene. But neither of its producers really saw this in person. Moroder and Bilotti didn't go to clubs, avoided drugs, and drank rarely, even as the success of I Feel Love was launching them into superstardom. In 2017, Moroder even told The Guardian that he thought you can't dance to I Feel Love. Obviously, he was wrong about that. I Feel Love was so danceable that it laid the groundwork for a generation of dance music to come. It influenced Eno and Bowie and inspired Blondie to embrace disco and cut an album with Moroder. Then unknown, the Human League completely changed their sound after hearing the track and would go on to become key players in a wave of synth pop that dominated the 80s. I Feel Love showed the world more than just new sounds. It showed them entirely new means of producing music. It birthed new wave and sowed the seeds that electronic dance music would grow from. Today, machine synchronization is ubiquitous in basically all recorded music. And on the human side, the love that Summer poured into the track lasted too. She and Bruce Sudano remained together until Summer's death in 2012. I Feel Love was the perfect song for the future. It represented two hearts coming together, a driving, unrelenting dance beat, and a transcendent human love that resonates just as strongly today as it did in Hansa Studios and in dance floors across the world, all the way back in 1977. If you like what I do but want to see me taking on smaller artists who are doing cool work right now, you should check out my Nebula original series Polyphonic magazine. That project is a monthly series where I put together profiles on musicians that I think are doing really exciting things right now. The whole thing is an homage to the magazine feature pieces that helped to shape my musical education, and the visuals are designed to be like living magazine layouts. It's a project that I'm really proud of, and a project that just would not be possible on any other platform. Each month, Polyphonic magazine also has a corresponding newsletter that goes straight to your inbox where I muse about art, life, and, of course, music. If that sounds cool to you, you should check out Nebula with the link in the description. Signing up through my page directly helps me as a creator and gets you access to all of my videos early and with no ads. And now, if you sign up using that link, you'll also get access to my Nebula class, where I teach how to analyze music, and I even show my face. So head on over to go.nebula.tv/polyphonic and get started today. If you use my link, you get a 40% discount on annual plans, which means it's just $2.50 a month. Signing up with Nebula is a great way to support not just me, but the entire indie creator ecosystem. And hey, thanks for watching.